Welcome to Blondes and A Brokerage. Today we're kind of going to talk vastly about this shifting market and one of the main things that's helpful with getting a buyer's offer accepted. So one of that is called a sunset clause. You can kind of call it whatever you want. I thought I created the wheel and made it, I called it a bonus clause, but it's really a sunset clause. So essentially what that means is, with the fact that we are coming from a market where there were multiple offers, and now that we're coming to a market where there might, instead of be like 30 offers, there might only be 2 or 3, that you can still be the winning offer by offering certain things. With the sunset clause, what that entails is you are trying to get to be the first client into the property. That's one step. Second step is whatever, number you're in of getting in to actually see the property. By writing the offer and saying, look, we're gonna offer, let's say the house is priced at $350,000. You want to win this, so you're going to come in and say, okay, I'm going to offer $360,000, okay, so $10K over instead of $80,000 over. All of my other due diligence, all the fun deadlines, everything's in there, and then in additional provisions, I'm going to put, if you accept this offer today, you take it off the market today, I'm going to give you an extra $10,000 on top of that. So really, you're going to net $370,000, but that's only if you accept my offer by 7 p.m. tonight. So there are things that can, as a listing agent, that we go, ugh, that's not in the best interest for my sellers. But at the end of the day, that extra $10,000 on top of whether you come in and asking or you come in over is going to give my seller more money in their pocket at the end of the day, instead of waiting through a weekend or waiting until the other 7 people have their showings. So
I think that, maybe, it might not be in the best interest of your client to accept an offer early, but it might, depending on your client's situation. I think that's something that we need to keep in the back of our heads, is financially, it might make the most sense for them to wait to accept an offer. They might get their highest and best later on in the weekend, but 1, they might not, especially with the market changing as it is. And 2, maybe it's expensive for them to stay out of their house for showings all weekend, extremely inconvenient. Maybe they're not worried about their net as much as someone else might be, which is true. I mean, I've had sellers that are like that, where they're just I have a number that I need to make, and anything above that is great, but I'm not feeling like I need to hold out for that. And I have to say, of the few times I've used the sunset clause in the last 6 months, it has worked every single time. I mean, it has to be aggressive, right? It has to be you have to know the market really well and know probably what the seller is going to end up with at the end to get them to accept early. But this is another reason why I think you want to, like you said, be the first person in the property, see it as early as possible, because there are other people that are doing the sunset clause too, right? Or a competitive cash offer that might come in and say you have to accept by today or whatever. Yep. So I think you should see the property as soon as possible. And I also don't really believe in waiting to submit an offer. If you're this is the property for you, submit the offer right away.
Exactly.
And I have these conversations with agents sometimes, because they're well, offers aren't due until Sunday, so we'll wait, we'll hold out on Sunday to see if they accept an offer early or something. It's oh God, now
you're just creating a bit
yes,
more.
You're killing yourself,
Yeah.
If you know it's the one, go in super aggressive. And both times that I used it recently, I was shocked that they took the offer.
It worked.
But it did work. But you have to, obviously be comfortable and make sure your clients know what that number is, the ultimate number that they're going to counter back at. And that's the other thing too, is then they do counter back at that price.
But you have the communication. You're
right.
not just sitting out waiting for
and then it's your decision.
The other offers to come in. Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that's why it's so true of, it is still working in the shifting market.
Yeah.
I just dealt with one with my listing this last weekend. They didn't have a sunset clause, but there was an amazing offer that came in that was how can we take this off?
Yeah.
And I said, here's where the seller's at. If you can do this, he'll sign. But it's up to our clients at the end of the day. And so when we're having those conversations and what we're trying to do and better the offer as the buy agent, and then get our sellers as much net as we can possible.
Right.
That's the end goal. But I do think that is on top of all of the other tools that we've given you guys on this podcast. This is another great tool that you can use at any time, and it does work.
Definitely. And I think, we've talked about the escalation clause already. A sunset clause is essentially a really aggressive escalation clause with a deadline.
Yep.
And the way I write my sunset clauses is you know, we're writing this offer at, property is listed at 610. We're writing this offer at 620, with an escalation clause up to 680. However, if you accept it tonight, purchase price will automatically be escalated to 680. So for the seller, then they have to come back and look at it and it's like, okay, well, if I accept this tonight, I'm guaranteed the 680. If I wait and let the escalation clause come into effect, and then I only get offers at 640, this escalation clause may only be 641, whereas tonight it might be 680.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of where you have to like weigh it out. And now with this market, the likelihood of you getting offers that don't get up to 680 is a lot higher.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's now the conversations we have to have with our clients, like, and it goes both ways,
It
right?
does.
I mean,
It does.
So you really have to know it's the right property. You really have to know the market. You have to pull great comps, because you don't want to get yourself in a situation with an appraisal either. But yeah, it could be a great situation for both the buyer and the seller. It could alleviate them having to deal with showings and 20 offers. In this case, probably not as many offers these days, but and you know, your client gets the property, so it's a win-win in my opinion.
Yeah. So if you guys have any questions, let us know. We're happy to give any insight, and then hopefully we can help you guys win the next offer.
Yeah.